Chag Sameach. We're here to celebrate with you Simchat Torah. Our practice activity for many years has been to unroll the Torah, and when we do that, to read a summary of each parasha of the Torah, so we can really go through the journey from Bereishit to Dvarim, from the beginning to the end of the Torah, before we begin all over again. As we can't do this in community this year, Rav Tiferet and I are inviting you in this journey, and we'll be reading the summaries of each parasha. You can accompany this with the attached PDF document that includes all the summaries in a way to invite you in this journey. We hope, we pray that next year we will again be here, unrolling the Sefer Torah, having many volunteers read this different parashot. But we hope first that Torah continue being an inspiration for all of us in this year to come, that during this challenging time, Torah can bring light to our lives. So we start with the book of Bereishit, of Genesis. Bereishit. God creates the world in 6 days. God creates Shabbat. God forms the human body from the dust of the earth and blows into the nostril a living soul. Noach. A flood destroys all living creatures except for Noach, his family, and the animals in the ark. Rain falls for 40 days and nights. When the ground dries completely, God commands Noach to exit the ark and repopulate the earth. God swears never again to destroy people because of their deeds, and sets the rainbow as a sign of this new promise. Lech Lecha. Abram and Sarai follow God's call to journey to Canaan. Abram is renamed Abraham, and Sarai is renamed Sarah. God promises that a son will be born to them. Vayera. 3 guests appeared to Abraham in the desert heat. They are really angels in disguise, and they announce that in exactly 1 year, Sarah will give birth to a son. Sarah laughs because she feels she's too old to give birth to a child. But God does give them a son, and his name is Isaac, Yitzchak, which means we'll laugh. Abram is 100 years old and Sarah is 90 when their son is born. Chayei Sarah. Sarah dies at age 127 and is buried in Hebron. Abram's servant is sent with gifts to the city of Haran to find a wife for their son Isaac. Isaac marries Rivka. He loves her very much and is comforted over the loss of his mother. Abram dies at age 175 and is buried beside Sarah by his 2 eldest sons, Isaac and Ishmael. Toldot. Isaac marries Rebekah. After 20 years, Rebekah gives birth to twins, Jacob and Esau. God tells her that there are 2 nations in her womb and that the younger will prevail over the elder. Vayetze. Jacob leaves his hometown Beersheba and journeys to Haran. On the way, he dreams of a ladder connecting heaven and earth with angels climbing up and down. Jacob goes to his uncle Laban's house and lives for several years. He marries both of his uncle Laban's daughters, Leah and Rachel, and has a large family. Va'ishlach. Jacob returns to the Holy Land after 20 years. In Haran, and sends angel messengers to his brother Esau in hope of reconciliation. Jacob and Esau meet, embrace, and kiss. Jacob's wife Rachel dies while giving birth to her second son, Benjamin, and is buried in a roadside grave near Bethlehem. Vayeshev. Jacob settles in Hebron with his 12 sons. His favorite is Joseph. Joseph's brothers are jealous of the special treatment he receives from his father, especially the precious striped coat that Jacob made for Joseph. Joseph tells his brothers 2 dreams he has, which foretell that he is destined to rule over them. This increased their envy and hatred towards him. Joseph ends up in prison, and while he is there, he interprets other people's dreams. Miketz. Joseph interprets Pharaoh's dream, and Pharaoh appoints Joseph governor of Egypt. Joseph marries and has 2 sons, Menashe and Ephraim. Famine spreads throughout the region, and food can be found only in Egypt. 10 of Joseph's brothers come to Egypt to purchase grain. Joseph recognizes his brothers, but they do not recognize him. Vayigash. Joseph reveals his identity to his brothers. I am Yosef, he declares. Is my father still alive? Od Avinu Chai. His brothers are overcome by shame and remorse, but Joseph comforts them. It was not you who sent me here, Joseph says to them, but God. It has all been ordained from God to save us and the entire region from famine. Vayechi. Jacob lives the final 17 years of his life in Egypt. Before he dies, he asks Joseph to take an oath that he will bury him in the Holy Land. Jacob blesses Joseph's 2 sons, Menashe and Ephraim. And this completes the book of Genesis. And we all say together, Chazak, Chazak, Venit Chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another.
Exodus, Sefer Shmot. Shmot. The children of Israel multiply in Egypt. Threatened by their growing numbers, Pharaoh enslaves them and orders that all male babies should be killed at birth. Va'era. God reveals God's self to Moses and promises to take the children of Israel from Egypt and free them. God brings plagues on the Egyptians, and Pharaoh repeatedly refuses to allow the Israelites to leave. Bo. God brings the final 3 plagues on the Egyptians. The Israelites leave Egypt and receive the commandment to observe Passover. Beshalach. The Israelites cross the Sea of Reeds in safety, and Pharaoh's army drowns in the waters. The Israelites sing praises to God. In response to their complaints about a lack of food and water when they are in the desert, God gives them manna. They are then attacked by Amalek. Yitro. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, hears of the great miracles which God performed for the people of Israel and advises Moses to appoint magistrates and judges to assist him in the task of governing the people. God speaks the 10 commandments to the children of Israel amidst fire, smoke, and the sound of the shofar. Mishpatim. Following the revelation at Sinai, God makes a series of laws for the people of Israel. God promises to bring the people of Israel to the Holy Land and warns them against assuming the pagan ways of the people who live there. Moses goes up Mount Sinai and remains there for 40 days and 40 nights to receive the Torah from God. Terumah. God instructs Moses to collect gifts from the Israelites. For God has said, "They shall make me a sanctuary, and I shall dwell among them." Tetzaveh. God tells Moses to receive from the children of Israel pure olive oil to feed the everlasting flame of the menorah, which Aharon is to kindle each day from evening until morning. The priestly garments to be worn by the Kohanim, the priests, while serving in the sanctuary are described. Kitisa. The people of Israel are told to each contribute exactly half a shekel of silver to the sanctuary, no more, no less. When Moses does not return when expected from Mount Sinai, the people become afraid. They make a golden calf and worship it. God is terribly angry, but Moses pleads on their behalf, and God forgives them. Vayakel. Moses assembles the people of Israel and repeats the commandment to observe the Shabbat. He then conveys God's instructions regarding the making of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. The people donate so many wonderful materials for the building of the Mishkan that Moses has to tell them to stop giving. A team of wise-hearted artisans make the Mishkan and its furnishings. Pekudei. The work of constructing the tabernacle is completed. Moses receives the command to anoint its vessels and to anoint Aharon and the priests. This completes the book of Exodus. We all say together, Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another.
Va'ikra. God calls to Moshe from the tent of meeting and tells him the laws of the korbanot, the animal and meal offerings brought in the sanctuary. Tzav. God instructs Moshe to command Aaron and his sons regarding their duties and rights as Kohanim, as priests. Aaron and his sons remain within the sanctuary compound for 7 days, and Moshe initiates them into the priesthood. Shmini. After the decision of the tabernacle, Aaron and his sons begin to officiate as Kohanim, priests. Aaron's 2 elder sons, Nadav and Avihu, offer a strange fire before God, Esh Zara, which God commanded them not, and die before God. Aaron is silent in face of his tragedy. God then commands the kosher laws, identifying which animals may be eaten. Tazria. God tells Moshe about the purification rituals for mothers after they give birth. God says that all male infants are to be circumcised on the 8th day of life. Metzorah. God describes how people and homes can be purified by the Kohen, by the priest, with a special procedure. Acharei Mot. Following the death of Nadav and Abihu, God warns against unauthorized entry into the holy. Only one person, the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, may enter the innermost chamber in the sanctuary, and only on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Kedoshim. God says, "You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy." Also, Kedoshim is a very famous saying. The great sage Rabbi Akiva called it the most important principle of the whole Torah. Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. Emor. God gives Moshe a series of laws for the priests and instructs Moshe to tell the people about the festivals of Passover, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Behar. On the mountain of Sinai, God tells Moshe the laws of the sabbatical year and the Jubilee year and how to relate to people in the community who become impoverished. Bechukotai. God promises that if the people of Israel will keep God's mitzvot, God's commandments, they will enjoy material prosperity and dwell securely in their homeland. But God also says that evil will befall them if they abandon their covenant with God. And this completes the book of Leviticus, and we all say together, Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another.
Numbers, Sefer Bamidbar. In the Sinai desert, God says to conduct a census of the 12 tribes of Israel. God also describes the unique duties of the priests. Naso. God communicates to Moses the laws of the Nazir. Drink no wine, do not cut your hair, and never come in contact with a dead body. God then gives to Moses and Aaron the priestly blessing. The leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel each bring gifts to the tabernacle. Ba'alotcha. The Israelites receive instructions regarding Passover. They journey from Sinai and complain to God on several occasions, provoking God's anger. Miriam and Aaron speak against Moses. Shlach lecha. Moses sends spies to the land of Canaan. 40 days later, they return. 10 of the spies warn that the inhabitants of the land are giants and warriors, more powerful than we are. Only Caleb and Joshua have faith in God and insist that the land can be conquered, as God has commanded. God punishes the people for their lack of faith. God says that the people will wander in the desert for 40 years before they can enter the promised land. Korach rebels against Moses' leadership. The earth opens up and swallows Korach and his followers. Chukat. Moses is taught the laws of the red heifer, whose ashes purify a person who has been contaminated by contact with a dead body. Miriam dies, and the people thirst for water. God tells Moses to speak to a rock and command it to give water. Moses gets angry and strikes the rock instead of speaking to it. Aharon dies. Balak, the king of Moab, summons the prophet Balaam to curse the people of Israel. Balaam tries, but each time he opens his mouth, a blessing comes out instead. Pinchas. Aharon's grandson Pinchas is given a covenant of peace. The daughters of Tzlophechad want to inherit their father's land. Moses empowers Joshua to succeed him and lead the people into the land of Israel. Matot. Moses describes the laws of oaths. War is waged against Midian for their role in plotting the moral destruction of Israel. The tribes of Reuben and Gad request to live outside of the land of Israel. Maaseh. The people of Israel stand on the banks of the Jordan River, ready to enter the promised land. The boundaries of the promised land are given, and cities of refuge are given as havens and places of exile for people who commit murder by accident. This completes the book of Numbers. We all say together, Chazak, chazak, benit chazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another.
And Dvarim, Deuteronomy. Dvarim. Moshe recounts to the Israelites episodes from the 40 years in the wilderness. He encourages the Israelites in their upcoming conquest of the land of Canaan. Moshe tells Joshua, who will take the people into the land and lead them in battle, "Fear not, for Adonai your God shall fight for you." Va'etchanan. Moshe tells people of Israel the importance of keeping God's mitzvot when they enter the land of Israel. Moshe repeats the 10 commandments, Aseret HaDivrot, and utters the Shema, and tells the people to love God, study Torah, and put their words of the Shema in mezuzot on the doorpost of their homes. Ekev. Moshe continues his speech to the children of Israel, promising them that if they will fulfill the mitzvot of the Torah, they will prosper in the land they are about to conquer. Moshe explains to the people that their 40 years in the desert was to teach them that humans do not live on bread alone. And Moshe describes the land they are about to enter as flowing with milk and honey. Re'eh. See, says Moshe to the people of Israel, I place before you today a blessing and a curse. A blessing will come when you fulfill God's mitzvot, and curse will come if you abandon them. Moshe also talks about the 3 pilgrimage festivals, Passover, Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Shoftim. Moshe instructs the people of Israel to appoint judges and law enforcement officers in every city. He says, justice, justice you shall pursue. Kitetzeh. 74 of the Torah's 613 commandments, mitzvot, are in the parasha. This includes the laws of burials, of sending away the mother bird before taking her young, and the duty to erect a safety fence around the roof of one's home. Ki tavo. Moshe tells the people of Israel, when you enter the land that God is giving to you, you must bring the first ripened fruits of your orchard to the holy temple and declare your gratitude for all that God has done for you. Moshe reminds the people that they are God's chosen people and that they in turn have chosen God. Nitzavim. Moshe describes the covenant between God, and the Israelites. Moshe urges the Israelites to uphold the covenant, the brit, and honor the Torah, so that they will be rewarded with life in the land of Israel. God says, life and death I have set before you, blessing and curse. Choose life. Vayelech. Moshe says, I am 120 years old today. And then Moshe transfers the leadership of the Jewish people to Joshua and blesses him. He tells the people to gather every 7 years during the festival of Sukkot and read aloud from the Torah. Ha'azinu. Moshe recites a song to the children of Israel that serves as a testimony of their covenant with God. God tells Moshe to climb to the top of Mount Nebo. From there, Moshe can see the promised land, but he's never allowed to enter it. Vezot habracha. Moshe gives the tribe of Israel a final blessing and dies at age of 120. The children of Israel mourn and begin to follow Joshua, their new leader. This completes the book of Deuteronomy and the whole Torah, and we all say together, Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, and let us strengthen one another. Et chaimi lamachazikim ba vetomchea meushad derachei darchei noam bechol netivotea shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha benashova chadesh yameinu kekedem. Chag Sameach.